I'd like to just, before diving into any more details, to just have a think through and reason through what end-to-end data science actually means to you, and what all the moving parts are from start to finish.
Yeah, and I remember you asked me, it was a good question, like, do we call it full stack data science or end-to-end? And I was thinking, you know what, that's a good question. And really it's the end-to-end process, because
Yeah.
we're talking about really the people. So the way we think about it is, number one, I want to be there at the outset of defining the goals. If I'm not, it's not already a failure. Like, it could probably be salvaged, but you can't you can't find a needle in a haystack of data if the
Absolutely.
haystack was created, in a vacuum.
Yep.
If that even makes sense. I think
that makes perfect sense, strangely. Yeah, it was a wonderful mixed metaphor, but I loved it.
But it's I used to run this
in a needle stack in a haystack vacuum, no one can hear you scream data. Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. That's scary. I'm gonna have nightmares about that now.
Well, it is Friday the 13th, so
I remember, when I worked at the biotech company, there were times where we'd come back, or we'd get, it's always the case. The salespeople go and make all these promises, and I'd be talking to the scientists after, and they'd say, "You can't do that." Like, this is the experimental design of this for this project. It just wasn't set up to do that. I mean, like, the laws of physics can't be broken to make this happen, right?
Yeah.
So we're not talking to that extent, but it is sort of at that point where it's like, look, I want to be there to talk to the end users who are going to use the tool, who are trying to take action, and let's make sure that we're collecting the data appropriately, so that you can answer those questions and you can take the appropriate steps needed after you look at this tool. So to me, it's a whole process that goes from initial meetings, which is why when we're scoping, we're always asking about who should we be talking to. Mm-hmm. We do stakeholder interviews. We talk to the right people. And then it goes to this kind of what I call like a collaborative kind of mock-up wireframe process. And this is where you start to get them thinking about, how are you going to use this thing? How do you envision using this? And we'll actually live create a mock-up with them. Amazing. And we're like, oh, so how are you thinking about, because people will just throw stuff out there, and I'll say, well, where do you think that's going to live, and how do you want to control that? And then so
this would be a live mock-up of the Shiny app.
Yep, exactly. Yep. Really helpful, actually, to do that. Like, I highly recommend it, because then you're not going back later and moving stuff all around, and it's like no one knows how to use it.
I don't remember where this is, but I heard you recently speak. You gave a really nice example. I hope it was you. I hope I'm not messing this up. Of like trading apps, right?
Trading.
Yeah, and so I think the example was if you've, if your stocks have gone up a certain amount and it's obvious that you probably want to sell at that point, having the button next to it saying, "Hey, sell," instead of having to dig deep 3 levels down and click through.
Yeah. Like having like very clear call to actions on somewhere on your dashboard is huge. Having very self-explanatory instructions or tool tips or anything that guides the user through this whole experience. Because when you're building something too, it's very easy to look at that and think it's obvious, but you're looking at it every day. So I try to make it almost like, hey, here's what you do. Like, here's what we recommend.
Export to Excel button that you mentioned earlier, right? Like having something as simple as that, which provides a huge amount of utility for the end user.
Yeah. And there's a lot of nice R packages that do a lot of this cool stuff for me. So it's nice.
Awesome. Okay. Sorry.
So we mock it up, and then I'll put together a very basic, like a V0 or a prototype, a POC, and, connect that either to extracts or live data, depending on the access we have. And we'll start very simple and we'll put it in front of them. Great. Now the floodgates open, right? All the ideas, all the things that weren't in the requirements doc, if there was one, all the gotchas and the little weird things about not enough data here and the edge cases here and how I want to visualize this and how I want to drill down and how I want to navigate. You just get everything now. It opens up everyone's creative juices. Suddenly, everyone has ideas. And that's good and bad, right? Because now you got to prioritize as well. So what we do is we collect all that feedback, and we'll have a meeting and walk through it. And I'll give them estimates. I'll say, here's, if you need this, this is how long it will take, but this has to fall to the bottom. And based on their client needs, they'll hopefully prioritize accordingly. And then, once they feel comfortable with it, we've had some internal testing. I always try to get internal testing resources because we're a small team. Also helps us keep our costs down, and we can focus on what we're good at. They know their data. Like go through some testing phases, start to, mature up the app, whether it's clean up the code, optimize it, make things faster, connect now to live data, and then deploy it on their Arc Connect or whatever it is. And it depends on the client, but there's even clients where we've deployed prototypes internally just for them to test on Arc Connect. So depends on if it's an internal tool only, or if it's like we need to serve this up to our customers. Typically, we're making Shiny apps that are for internal consumption. But we have a few coming up that are probably going to go from internal consumption to client facing, which I think is a fun segue, because you got to figure out the personas, who's using it, how do we make this better, how do we now set permissions up for the clients to use it, what do we want the client experience to be, right? It can be a little quick and dirty for internal, but it becomes a different ball game when you deploy it for clients.
Absolutely. Yeah, the expectations are totally different at that point, right?
Yeah. And I just tell people, when we're in the testing phase and prototype, like, this is not, the word of God yet. Don't tell anyone it is. Like, until we go through this testing and everything, this is art of the possible. We're in development phases. And this is kind of the pros and cons of rapid prototyping is people see that really nice, shiny dashboard and they think this is a finished product,
Yeah.
And it's like, no, this is very much not. This is an intermediate product that is a work in progress.
Yeah.
And it can be a work in progress for a long time. It's just, we got to check the different boxes of what we feel really good about, what's really been tested, and go from there.
Totally.
That's my fluffy high level. I don't have like a, that's the general process we use.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.